We don't oppose tyranny. We oppose not being the ones in control of it. You're not being informed. You're being conditioned through repetition. How can a man demand blood and shout, "When you come into my city, I will spill your blood," and then cry, "Tyrant," when it is his own blood that is staining the ground? This is the great contradiction of our time. Violence is justified when it is spoken in our dialect, committed under our banner, or aimed at our enemies. The same act, when reflected back at us, becomes oppression. We do not oppose tyranny, we oppose losing control of it. We have confused moral certainty with moral superiority. Every age produces men who stand at the top of their own authority and their own voice, declaring, "My way is the way." They speak with not humility but verdict. Opposition is not disagreement, it is heresy. The other must be reduced, renamed, flattened into something less than human. Once the other is subhuman, cruelty becomes righteousness. Blood becomes necessary, silence becomes violence, and compliance becomes virtue. Any man who says, "I have it all figured out," be him a fool. And yet we are surrounded by fools with megaphones, iPads, Twitter, and Facebook. The same mouths that cried, "This is wrong, you cannot treat my neighbors this way," will step over those same neighbors tomorrow, not because they are evil, but because they are comfortable, because the empathy is loud when it is abstract, and quiet when it is inconvenient. We scoff at each other over symbols and costumes, iPhone or Android, red hat or blue hat, pale skin or dark skin, more hair or less hair, armed or unarmed, educated or ignorant. We pretend these are moral distinctions when they are merely tribal markers. We chant about unity while sorting ourselves into smaller boxes, each one demanding a purity test to enter. Hypocrites, all of us, not because we lie, but because we refuse to look at ourselves long enough to see the lie forming. Yes, humans thrive best in small tribes. We always have. Communities small enough to recognize faces, to remember names, to feel shame, and to feel responsibility. Places where accountability is personable, but not bureaucratic. But history shows us small communities grow complacent or divided. They are invaded, absorbed, regulated, and protected into submission by larger centralized powers. Authority does not announce itself as domination. It arrives as order, as safety, as efficiency. And when the law of the land becomes the law of Lucifer, your beloved Satan, not the Red Devil cartoon, but the philosophy itself, "Do what thou shalt wilt," then men are justified to rule over other men without restraint, without higher accountability, and without anything above desire and power. This is where the intellect and the instinct collide. The intellect says this is the most logical system: centralized control, optimized outcomes, reduced chaos, measure humans like variables, sacrifice the few for the many, efficiency over dignity. The peasants proclaim safety. Safety we need, not because they are stupid, but because fear is persuasive. Because when your child is threatened, you will trade almost anything for the promise of protection. Authority understands this better than philosophers ever will. And so we consent, slowly, repeatedly, willingly. Which brings us to repetition. I just want you to think about the opening of The Simpsons for a moment. Every episode begins the same way: familiar, comfortable, predictable, a few absurd variations in the beginning to keep your attention, but always the same destination. By the end, they're all sitting on the couch watching TV. The show tells you exactly what you are about to do while you are doing it. The intro is not entertainment, it is conditioning. It is not brainwashing, it is conditioning. It is repetition. And repetition is the most powerful form of programming, not because it convinces you, but because it dulls you. What once felt absurd becomes normal. What once felt alarming becomes background noise. What once demanded action becomes content. You are not being informed, you are being habituated. This is why the parallels of the film Civil War feel unsettling rather than shocking. Not because the scenario is unrealistic, but because it feels familiar. Fragmentation, moral absolutism, neighbor against neighbor, each side convinced they are the last line between order and chaos, each side blind to the ways they have already become what they claim to resist. Civil wars do not begin with soldiers, they begin with language. This language we are experiencing now. They begin when people stop seeing individuals and start seeing categories, when dialogue becomes dangerous, when disagreement is framed as violence, and when power is justified as protection and dissent is framed as a threat. We are not living in the collapse yet. We are living in the rehearsal. The danger is not authoritarianism regimes alone. The danger is the collective desire for authority when fear outweighs the conscience. The danger is believing that if the right people are in charge, coercion will finally be moral. Let me tell you, it never is. Men ruling over men will always corrupt, regardless of the flag that they wave, slogans that they chant. History does not repeat because we forget facts. It repeats because we refuse to confront ourselves. The tyrant is never the man on the throne. He is the crowd cheering as long as the whip lands on somebody else. Until we are willing to admit that, we will keep demanding blood, calling it justice, and acting surprised when the blade eventually turns inward. Thanks for watching.